I'm going to go over the independent practice problems. We're going to do number 4 here. We are solving for K. We have 4 steps that we do. The first step is distributive property. There's no distributive property. The second step is to combine like terms on each side of the equal sign. We do not have terms to combine on either side of the equal sign. These are not like terms, so you cannot combine them. The third step is to move variables to the same side. We don't have variables on both sides of the equal sign. So the only thing that we're doing here is isolating the variable. You got to get K by itself. You got to get rid of the 7 and the -3 so that K is by itself. Get rid of all numbers that you can add or subtract to remove. This 7 is attached to K by multiplication. This K is attached to, -3 here. In order to get rid of this -3, we add 3 to both sides. So we get rid of it first because you can add to get rid of it. When you add 3 to this side of the equal sign, this gives you 0, and you're left with 7K. We're going to add 3 to this side. 32 plus 3 gives us 35. Now, in order to get K by itself, the operation that's automatically between this number and this variable is multiplication. The opposite or inverse of multiplication is division. So you're going to divide by 7 on both sides to get rid of the 7. 7 divided by 7, or 7 goes into 7 one time. So that's 1K, or just K, because 1 times K is just K. Bring down your equal sign. 35 divided by 7 is going to be 5. And again, if you want to check it, then you can substitute the number back in to K to check it. And both sides should be equal to 32. Right? If you want to take a picture of that, you can take a picture of that. If I'm moving too fast, please let me know so I can slow it down. I am going to look at I've already done 1, I'm going to do 2. Here, to get B by itself, we're solving for B. We got to get rid of the 2 first. Remember, anything that you can add or subtract to remove, do it first. This is a +2, so in order to move it, the inverse of adding is to subtract it. So we're going to subtract 2 from both sides of the equal sign. When we subtract 2 here, 2 minus 2 is 0, and we're left with this 5B. On this side, we have 17 minus 2. 17 minus 2 is going to be 15. In order to get B by itself, remember the operation that's automatically between a number and a variable is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So in order to get rid of the 5, you divide by 5 on both sides. 5 divided by 5, or 5 goes into 5 one time. So that gives you 1B. 1 times B is just B. So you get 1B or just B. 15 divided by 5 gives you 3. So B is equal to 3. Okay? Number 3, you're solving for T. In order to get T by itself, you got to move this -2 first. So you're going to add 2 on both sides. Everybody okay? Edison, you good? Okay. Here, when you add 2 on both sides, this is gone. This is 0. -2 plus 2 is 0. And you're left with 4T. Bring down your equal sign. On this side, 14 plus 2 gives you 16. In order to get t by itself, remember that the operation that's automatically between 4 and t is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 4 to get rid of the 4. 4 divided by 4, or 4 goes into 4 one time. So you get 1t. 1 times t is just t. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Please take a picture of this page. If you need it, pause. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave number 1 for you to do if you haven't done it already. But I'm going to do number 4 because that one was a little bit harder. All right, so we're getting f by itself. We're solving for f. So in order to get f by itself, we have to get rid of the 3 over 4 and the 10. Remember, we're going to get rid of all the numbers that can be added or subtracted to get rid of. So we're going to get rid of the 10 first. This is a positive 10, so we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. Okay? When you subtract 10 from this side of the equation, this is 0, and you are left with 3 over 4f. Bring down your equal sign. On this side, you have negative 5 minus 10. That gives you a negative 15. Now we need to get rid of the 3/4. 3 over 4 is being multiplied times this f. The opposite of multiplication is division. When you divide by a fraction, that's the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. I'm going to write this over here to the side. The reciprocal of 3 over 4 means that you're going to flip. The 3 is going to come on the bottom. The 4 is going to be on the top. So the numerator is going to be the denominator, and the denominator is going to be the numerator. So this is 4 over 3. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4 over 3. Okay. Multiply both sides by the reciprocal. When you multiply this side by the reciprocal, you get 12 over 12. 12 divided by 12 gives you 1. So this is 1f, or just f. Bring down your equal sign. Okay? Let me make this look like a 1. On this side, write this as a fraction. If I can multiply straight across, this number is rather big, so I'm going to see if I can reduce diagonally to make it smaller. 3 goes into 15. 3 goes into both 15 and 3, so I'm going to divide by 3. When I divide 15 divided by 3, or negative 15 divided by 3 gives me a negative 5. Put a negative 5 here. I'm going to put a 1 here. Okay. Here, this is 4 on the top. On the bottom, 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. Now I'm going to multiply straight across. A negative 5 times 4 gives me a negative 20. And 1 times 1 gives me 1. So my answer is going to be negative 20 over 1, or just negative 20. Okay, slide this up just a little bit. I'm going to do number 5. Number 5 here, let me pause real quick. For number 5, I got to get b by itself. Isolating b. So I'm going to move all numbers that can be added or subtracted to move. I'm going to move this first. This number is attached by multiplication. So I'm going to move this because there's a minus sign in front of it. The opposite of subtraction is to add. So I'm going to add 2/5 on both sides to get rid of the 2/5. Okay. I'm going to bring my equal sign down here. When I subtract, A negative 2/5 plus a positive 2/5 is 0 here. So I'm left with a negative 1/5 times b, or 1/5 b. Here, when I add this together, I need a little bit of space. So let me move this out the way, y'all. I have 2 here. I need to create this, make this into a fraction so that I can add. So here, I'm going to write this as negative 1 and 5/5. 5/5 is 1, and I know 1 plus 1 will give me this 2 right here. I'm using 5/5 instead of 3/3, 4/4, 6/6, 100/100. I'm using 5/5 to represent 1 because this denominator here is 5. Okay, so I'm using 5/5 so I don't have to find a common denominator. So I'm going to put the 2/5 over here. 1 is positive and 1 is negative, so you're going to subtract to get your answer here. When I subtract my numerators. This is going to give me 3. Denominator stays the same, and bring down the 1. This is negative because this absolute value is bigger than this fraction. So this is going to be a negative 1 3/5. You want to write this into an improper fraction. So to do that, you multiply 5 times the 1 and you add 3. Okay? So my improper fraction, we know it's going to be a negative. It's a negative right here. Okay? This is 5, and 5 plus 3 is 8. So it's going to be 8/5. Just bring the denominator over. So here, this is going to be negative 8, sorry y'all, over 5. Okay. Now in order to get b by itself, we have to multiply by the reciprocal of this fraction. The reciprocal of negative 1/5 is negative 5/1, or just negative 5. Okay. This gives me positive 5/5, which is 1b, or just b. Bring down my equal sign. When I reduce this diagonally, this cancels out because 5 will go into 5 one time. So I get 1s here. I multiply straight across. This gives me negative 8 on the top and 1 on the bottom. Well, not negative. A negative times a negative is actually a positive. So this gives me a positive 8. Okay. And then you can do this one on your own here. Take a picture of this. All right, this is today's assignment. So I'm going to do number 1. All right, here I'm going to get x by itself. So we don't have distributive property, but we do have variables on both sides. I have an x over here and 5x over here. Since x is already on this side by itself, I'm going to move the 5x over there with it. This is a positive 5x. So the only way to move a positive 5x is to subtract 5x. Remember, there's a 1 automatically in front of this x. So when I say positive 1 minus 5, that gives me a negative 4. So this is negative 4x. When I subtract 5x from 5x, this is 0, and I'm left with 16. To get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by that negative 4. Remember that the operation that's automatically between 4 and x is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So this is going to give me x is equal to a negative 4. Any questions about that? I'm going to pause for the calls. All right, number 4. We're going to do the same thing. We don't have distributive property, so skip that step. We're going to move the variables to the same side. I'm going to move this negative 3x to this side. This is a negative 3x. So to move it, I'm going to add 3x. You have to move the variables to the same side because you cannot solve for x unless all the x's are together. All the variables have to be together. When I add 3x to 2x, that gives me 5x. So on this side, I get 5x plus the 5 that was already there equals the 3x cancels out on this side. Negative 3x cancels out. And I'm left with negative 10. Make sure you bring down the sign with it. Bring down the sign that's in front of it. Now to get x by itself, you got to get rid of all numbers that you can add or subtract to move. This is a positive 5, so I can subtract it to move it. When I subtract 5 on this side, this just gives me 5x. And on the other side, this gives me negative 15. In order to get x by itself here, remember that 5 and x are attached by multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So you're going to divide both sides by 5. And that's going to give you x is equal to a negative 3. Questions about that? Okay. I'm going to pause.